Good evening. Welcome to the YouTube live stream. We're going to be talking about why explaining yourself doesn't work and what's actually happening. Thank you for the heart, guys. Welcome. My name is Buffy. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm a women's lifestyle creator on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and I have two podcasts. One is Recovering Perfectionist Mama, Grace in Progress. It's a psychology channel dealing with family roles and things like that. The second one is a true crime podcast. I'm an almost 18-year criminal defense attorney, and so I go into on Grace and Gavel, where truth meets compassion, meaning that I'm not sharing sensational details, but actually analyzing the case and topics like insanity and things like that. So if you guys are interested, those are actually housed on YouTube, and it's recovering_perfectionist_mama, the same username that I have here. So earlier I talked about that moment where explaining starts making things worse. Let's talk about what's actually happening and how it makes things worse. In healthy communication, more clarity leads to more understanding. So when someone is actually listening to what you have to say and is actually invested in what you have to say, there is a give and take, an exchange of ideas. When someone is not open to what you're having to say, maybe because they feel like you are essentially insulting them or projecting on them, or they don't like the topic or your particular viewpoint, they can shut down. They can then decide that you are against them, and there's really no reason why they need to listen to what you have to say, right? And so in healthy communication, we often say it's a give and take of communication. But if someone is easily offended, if they are on the opposite side of what you are trying to convey to them, they're going to turn on deaf ears, right? They're not going to try to engage with you and try to have the back and forth of conversation that most people want to have, right? That's what meaningful conversations are about. But in certain dynamics, more clarity leads to more distortion. And the reason that is because oftentimes people engage in something called willful blindness or learned helplessness, where they want to pretend or act like they have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I'm really not following you. You're not speaking very clearly. And that is all to push it back on you because they don't want to pay attention, or they have some ulterior motive that they're not fully talking about, but they want to project it onto you like it's a problem that you've created for them. You're not being clear enough to them. They're not understanding you. Your words are making no sense. Ultimately, that is a ploy to use manipulation and projection because they themselves don't have the time or the effort or the intention to give you the attention that you deserve, right? And so let's talk about the legal aspect of this, a legal lens, right? In law, we look at whether someone is engaging in good faith. For instance, when you are writing contracts, for instance, let's say you and I are going to enter into a contract. We want to make sure that we both are coming to the table in good faith. Meaning, if I'm trying to sell you a house and I've asserted and I've guaranteed that this house is good, it's not going to fall down, insurance is good, this is the price, like there's nothing wrong with this house. If I'm not acting in good faith, you could sue me, right? Because I'm not being honest with you. I'm not bringing everything to the table correctly. I have misled you. If the house falls down within a couple months of you buying it, clearly it was not in good shape, right? And so I'm misleading you. Similarly, when we're having a conversation with people, we have to almost assume that they're willing to act in good faith. However, some people are acting in good faith and some people are not. And so essentially, if that person is coming to the table and saying, hey, we're going to work this out, we're going to figure this out, and then they're not even willing to listen to you, and the more you explain, the more distorted things get, that can be extremely frustrating when you're like, I'm talking to a brick wall. They don't understand what I'm saying. They're not listening to me because they don't want to listen to me. They want to deflect. They want to project. They want to just play games. I don't have time to play games. Have any of you experienced that? Tap a heart if you have, or, hit a 1 or whatever. Thank you so much, Kolchai. Welcome, Elena Tataru. Welcome. And so So that can be a scenario where you have issues with that potentially. And ultimately, we look at whether they're acting in good faith or are they trying to shape their own narrative. Welcome, Elena. Nice to meet you. My name is Buffy. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. So essentially, what happens there is, are they trying to shape a narrative, right? Are they trying to confuse? And a lot of times people want to confuse and deflect so that they get you off your game. Maybe you will eventually say, you know what, this isn't worth it. Like, this is taking so much time that I don't have. And like, you're asking me questions that make no sense. So I'm really thinking that you're not listening to what I have to say, because I addressed that previously. And you're asking me the same question over and over and over and over again. That doesn't make any sense. Like, are you even listening to what I have to say? Oh, of course I've been listening to what you have to say. If you would make sense, I would be able to listen to it a little bit more. You know, you think about that back and forth exchange, deflect, deflect, deflect. And ultimately, they're trying to shape a narrative where they're willing to listen. They've come in good faith, and you are the one that is blowing this whole thing up because you don't know what you're talking about. You don't have the information that you said that you had. You're wasting my time. You look at them, you're like, really? Wow, what? Sure, feel free to like and subscribe if you like, Elena. I'd appreciate it. Welcome. And also, just so you know, guys, I do a lot of topics that I do very similar on my podcast, the Grace and Gavel one, or excuse me, the Recovering Perfectionist Mama one. I just go deeper into my podcast. So if you guys are interested in certain topics, then feel free to. We are actually talking about Merit. We're actually talking about why explaining yourself doesn't work and what's actually happening. And generally, sometimes explaining makes things a lot worse because the person that you're talking to has no real interest in listening to what you have to say. They literally are trying to confuse you and create their own narrative. A narrative whereby it's not their fault that they're not listening to you. It's your fault because you're not being clear enough to them. And that you are wasting their time rather than, that's projection, of course, because they are the ones that are wasting your time for maybe their own amusement, maybe frustrating you, causing you to get all upset, all sorts of things, right? And so that is what they are trying to do, trying to make you look bad, trying to frustrate you. Maybe if in this conversation you're trying to get them to have accountability, then maybe they're trying to avoid accountability, which is why they're hoping to frustrate you. So you'll just like, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm over this. I'm done with it. That's it. Well, what you can do is you can actually, depending on if you're more of an assertive person or you're more of a gentle person, are you wanting to be a sledgehammer or a hammer, right? If you are a person who is assertive, you can say, you know what, I know what you're trying to do, and you're not listening to me. And I have a big problem with that because you came here wanting us to have a discussion. I prepared for my discussion. I prepared explanations. I've went over this, and you're not paying attention because you keep asking me the same questions that I've already went over, right? Or if you're extremely frustrated, which I think some people would be extremely frustrated at this point, having this issue happen, you know, if you keep this up, I'm probably gonna have to walk out because this is we're getting nothing accomplished. We're literally spinning our wheels, and you and I mean, we're actually in different planets, frankly, because where I'm at versus where you are, this isn't working. This is frustrating. I would potentially say that you could definitely maybe, if you think that is a situation, then I would definitely look into bringing an interpreter, especially because that would be easier. I know that in my work, I've had like the language lines. A lot of the language lines are really going to, or really aren't as effective as people who actually know the language. Because from my understanding and from a lot of interpreters that I've worked with, they talked about a lot of the language line people actually translate word for word rather than meaning for meaning. And a lot of the non-native language speakers have had a big issue with that, right? Yeah, I mean, I think too, because you think about it, you don't know, like, of course we're doing a theoretical, but the thing about it is, it's like if you have spent all this time already before you even came to the table, and then you're dealing with this frustration, I mean, at that point, it's like, what else can be done? And honestly, I think even as simple as, depending on how serious they actually are, I mean, you just may be standing up and saying, I'm literally about ready to walk because this is not what we talked about. And clearly you're not interested in listening to what I have to say. And I don't understand why, because you wanted this meeting as much as I did, and here we are. I think that's a good choice, Merritt. I really do. I mean, if they're going to be that way, then, I mean, you can't really say that. I mean, you don't deserve to continue to have to explain and explain and explain and explain and have the diversion. It can relate to business. It can also relate to other issues as well. Like, let's say that there's a falling out with a friendship. There is, an issue with a family member. I think that communication ultimately can be tailored for pretty much anything. But I think that ultimately, when you're having conversations like that, nice to meet you, Elena. Have a great day. Nice to see you. Hopefully you'll join us again. We go live tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube as well. So feel free to check us out if you like. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I think communication can be tailored to be less formal or more formal depending on the circumstances. And I think that definitely you probably would be a lot different with someone who you had more of a personal relationship with. But I do think it's important for everybody, whether it's a formal conversation or an informal conversation, to actually have good faith. Be able to say, I'm listening to you. I want to hear what you have to say. But I don't want to play games. I don't want to be manipulated in this. I don't want to keep hitting my head against a brick wall with you because you're not listening, right? If the outcome stays the same, no matter how much evidence you provide, guess what? That's not confusion, that's conclusion. And they literally have made up their own conclusions. They're going their own way, no matter what you say. And that becomes the moment which is futile, right? It's not going to work. They're not listening. They don't care. They're checked out. They're not trying to understand you. They're not trying to understand where you came from. They're trying to distract you and deflect and frustrate you and annoy you likely. Hello, Napier. Welcome. Today we're talking about why explaining yourself doesn't work and what's actually happening. So if you have had moments where you're having a conversation and you realize the moment where explaining starts making things worse, right? And let's talk about what's actually happening there, right? In law, we talk about whether or not somebody is engaging in good faith, right? Are they coming to the table to discuss this in good faith? Or are they coming to frustrate you, to annoy you, to make you continually repeat yourself? Are they even listening to you? Are they asking questions about topics that you've already discussed? Even though they were well aware that this meeting was today, they were well aware of the consequences, the topics that would be discussed. Welcome, Ardelia's mom. And so that is very, very important. I mean, it can be difficult because everybody's time is valuable. Everybody's time is valuable, right? And so we need to have compassion and we need to have empathy for others, as well as treating people the way that they deserve to be treated, right? I mean, that's only fair. And so if the outcome stays the same, no matter how much evidence you provide, that's not confusion, that's conclusion. They've already made up their mind. So let's talk about a language shift here, an actionable strategy. So instead of explaining more, it starts to sound like, I've already explained my position. Well, I didn't get all your position. Well, maybe you should have been paying attention more instead of essentially trying to deflect and to frustrate me, because I'm pretty sure that I answered all the questions that you had, that you kept asking over and over again. Were you trying to delay? Were you trying to stall? Like, I'm not completely sure what exactly you were doing. And so the other thing too is, it's like they're not trying to understand you. They're trying to fit you into a role that they've already decided on, which a lot of people do that because they feel that it serves them. If you are a certain way with them, they've already made up their mind. So ultimately, all the talking isn't really going to change their mind. They've already made it up. So instead of explaining more, it starts to sound like, I've already explained my position. And then you stop. If they want to know more, if they want to knock off their little routine that they're doing, then they can do that. But if they don't, I've already explained my position. That's where I stand. If you like it, great. If you don't, great. But I'm not going to continue to answer these questions and waste more time when I've gone through this more than once, and be like, hey, that's it, So I'm going to do probably my next live tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern. I go on TikTok live at noon Eastern each day, and then go on YouTube live at 12:30 Eastern each day. And then I'll be going on Instagram live at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, today, 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for joining my live and hanging out with me and getting to know some of you. It was great. And I hope you got something from this conversation, and I hope that you'll come back and see me again soon. Again, my name is Buffy, recovering_perfectionist_mama, and I hope that you'll come back and see me, and I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.